Hello friends, about 70% of the friends who watch my videos are not subscribed, and I would be very happy if you did. Also, don't forget to press the like button and leave your comments. Your interaction makes the content reach everyone and contributes to the growth of the channel. Thank you all. From which country or city do you follow the channel? I only meant to take the job for a few weeks. Night shift security at a small marine museum by the coast of Crescent City. Sounds pretty chill, right? A place filled with old artifacts, a massive white whale skeleton hanging from the ceiling, and some taxidermy fish frozen behind dusty glass. Decent pay, no visitors. Just do a few rounds, check the cameras, log any incidents. But I noticed something strange right away. The HR guy avoided eye contact when handing me the contract. The old janitor muttered something as he passed me. Don't look into the mirror after 1:13. Stranger still, on my first night, I found a set of rules taped to the wall in the break room. The ink was faded, the paper yellowed and brittle, but the first line was still legible. If you hear 3 knocks from room 4, do not respond. That's not a living person knocking. I laughed. I'd worked graveyard shifts at abandoned hospitals and snow-covered parking lots. Nothing ever really scared me. But Crescent City is different. Here it's not the dark that gets to you. It's what hides in the flickering lights of the museum at 1:13 a.m., when every rule starts to make sense. And I realized this museum, it never truly closes. I took the job because I needed quiet. No drama, no co-workers, no screaming customers. Just me, the ocean breeze, and a museum that supposedly locked its doors by 6 p.m. Crescent City isn't exactly known for much. A sleepy coastal town with too many fishing boats and not enough sunlight. But there's one thing that always stood out on the foggy cliffside. The Crescent City Marine Museum. An old white building with faded blue trim warped window frames and a giant whale skeleton bolted to the roof. Locals call it the Bone House. Kids dare each other to sneak in after dark, but no one ever does. When I arrived for my first night shift, the front desk woman barely looked at me. She slid a key across the counter with 2 fingers. Back door entrance. Staff lounges to the left. Cameras are all linked. Just don't wander into room 4. And if the lights flicker, stay still. She said it so casually, I thought it was a joke. But her eyes never left the desk. I chuckled awkwardly. Room 4. She didn't respond, just whispered something under her breath and walked away. The hallway smelled of seawater and mold. Not strong, just enough to make you feel like something had soaked into the wood and never dried. The walls were lined with antique maritime gear, rusted diving helmets, barnacle-encrusted ropes, old oil lanterns that swayed slightly even without wind. Inside the break room, I found a small locker with my name taped on it. Next to it, nailed crookedly to the wall, was a framed list of rules, yellowed and torn at the corners. Someone had written across the bottom in shaky pen, "Don't be clever, just follow the damn rules." I thought it was part of some museum-themed prank, until I saw the security monitor. One of the camera feeds was pitch black, room 4, the one she warned me about. The timestamp flickered, then glitched for a second before resetting to U00000. The rest of the museum looked calm. Empty halls, still exhibits. But as I watched, a shadow moved across the screen of Gallery B, just for a split second. A tall, slow figure. Even though I was sitting in that very hallway, alone. I spun around. Nothing. Only silence. And the sound of the ocean hitting the rocks somewhere beyond the museum walls. I told myself it was lag. Bad signal. I told myself that a place full of old junk and taxidermy couldn't scare me. But I hadn't read rule number 3 yet. Never under any circumstance answer a knock after 2:13 a.m. I found the list on my second night. Same break room, same hum from the flickering fluorescent light above. But somehow I hadn't noticed it the night before. It wasn't taped to the wall like normal guidelines. It was nailed. 4 rusted nails, one in each corner, like someone really didn't want it falling off. The paper looked decades old. Torn, brittle, stained in the corners by what looked suspiciously like old water damage, or something else. The heading was written in all caps in thick, faded red marker: Night Shift Survival Rules. Do not ignore. I laughed at first. I thought it was a joke, part of some elaborate horror-themed museum aesthetic. But the longer I stared, the colder the room seemed to get. I read each rule carefully, and something in me shifted. The rules were as follows. If you hear 3 knocks from room 4 after 2:13 a.m., do not respond, do not investigate, do not even breathe loudly. I remembered the woman at the front desk. Her warning suddenly didn't seem like a joke anymore. If the lights go out and the emergency lights don't turn on within 6 seconds, close your eyes and count to 30. Don't open them no matter what you hear. 6 seconds. Why exactly 6? What happens in 7? Avoid looking directly at the whale skeleton between 2 and 3 hours or a.m. If you do, and you notice it has moved, it means it noticed you too. There were security logs. I would check the footage. I had to know. The mirror above the staff sink fogs up at exactly 1:13 a.m. If it does, do not try to wipe it. Leave the room immediately. Why the mirror? And what happens if I don't leave? If the phone rings and the caller ID says Trawler 6, unplug the line. Do not answer. The call is not for you. What the hell is Trawler 6, a ship? A code name? Why not just take the phone off the hook entirely? If you see a person in a raincoat standing inside the lobby, do not greet them. Check the cameras. If they don't appear on any feed, run. Not leave, not call the police, just run. That chilled me the most. On nights when the fog is thick enough to obscure the parking lot, do not go outside. Lock the doors. Turn off all lights. Someone is looking for a way in. The fog here is constant. If this rule is real, I'm already in danger. I stood there just staring at that list. The air around me felt different. Pressurized. As if the museum itself was holding its breath, waiting to see which rule I'd be the first to break. Suddenly the light above me flickered. Twice. Then once more. I glanced at the clock. 1:12 a.m. Almost time for the mirror. I turned slowly to the sink behind me, the staff mirror above it already slightly misted at the edges. I blinked. The clock ticked. 1:13. The mirror fogged over in one breathless sweep. I backed away without touching anything. The light above me let out a faint, high-pitched buzz. And just before I stepped out, I saw something in the condensation. A message. Written from the inside of the mirror. In reverse. Just one word, run. I started noticing them one by one. Small things at first, things you could rationalize. Things your brain wants to explain away. But when they begin stacking up rule by rule, hour by hour, you stop explaining, and you start surviving. It happened on the 3rd night. I was doing my rounds in Gallery C, the shell collection arranged in tall glass cases from floor to ceiling. Most of them were fossilized, cracked, labeled in Latin. Harmless, or so I thought. As I turned a corner near the center case, I heard it. A whisper. Close, wet, breathless, but unmistakably human. You heard me, didn't you? I froze. There was no one else in the building. The cameras confirmed that. I checked them twice. Then something happened that chilled my blood. One of the largest conch shells, case 7, began to rattle slightly on its own. Not violently, just enough. As if something inside it was shifting. I leaned closer, and from inside the hollow spiral, I heard the whisper again, clearer this time. Don't break the rules. Later that same night, I passed through the exhibit on shipwreck salvage. A single spotlight illuminated an old wooden chest behind thick glass, supposedly from a sunken trawler named the Black Saint. The story claimed it was pulled from the ocean completely sealed. No one could open it. I remember staring at it too long. That thing felt wrong. As I walked past, I heard a loud click behind me. I turned around. The chest's display case door had unlatched, swinging open, slowly, with a deep, echoing creak that made my stomach knot. I didn't go near it. I just backed away and whispered, "Nope, not tonight." The next morning, I found a slip of paper slid under the break room door. Do not turn your back on the chest. It was just past 2:00 a.m. Gallery B is the corridor filled with large aquatic taxidermy, swordfish, manta rays, a tiger shark suspended mid-lunge. Dim blue light simulates underwater ambiance. It's unnerving, even when nothing's happening. That night, I was walking past the glass when I saw my own reflection, except It wasn't mine. The figure in the glass was me, yes. Same clothes, same build. But it didn't move when I did. It stayed perfectly still, staring at me. Then it smiled, slowly, and lifted one finger to its lips. Shh. I blinked, heart hammering. When I looked again, the reflection was normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was now being watched from the other side of the glass. And maybe that was the real me in there trying to warn myself. There's a grandfather clock near the museum entrance. Ornate, polished, decorative, but still working. Until that night. At 2:47 a.m. on the dot, it stopped ticking. Not just stopped, froze. The pendulum halted mid-swing. The gears inside let out a high-pitched metallic shriek like they'd been forced to a dead stop. Then, silence. I leaned in, touched the glass, and suddenly the second hand twitched backwards. Once. Twice. And I heard the faintest voice from inside the clock. Time only moves forward, if you do. By the end of that week, I'd followed every rule. I hadn't opened the door to room 4. I hadn't answered the phone when it read Trawler 6. I hadn't looked directly at the whale bones. But things were getting worse. The museum was no longer just weird. It was aware. Some exhibits feel like they're just there for show, decorative, historical, harmless. But not the mirror. And certainly not the thing beneath it. It was my 5th night on shift, when I finally approached Exhibit F12, tucked in the corner of the Shipwrecks and Legends room. I'd walked past it many times always, with a strange tightness in my chest. It looked simple, a tall, ornate mirror mounted on a wall of driftwood and rusted iron. Its frame was carved with unfamiliar symbols, spirals, hooks, what looked like waves curling around screaming faces. No plaque, no spotlight, no description. Just a faint rope barrier and a dusty sign on the floor that read in faded ink, "Do not wipe the glass. Do not face it after midnight." I always avoided it, until that night. I was walking by doing my rounds. Everything was quiet, unnervingly so. Then I saw it. The mirror was fogging up, not from behind, not from the sides, but directly in the center in slow spirals like breath on cold glass. Except the room wasn't cold. I wasn't even close enough to affect it. And I swear to God I hadn't looked directly into it. But something inside me whispered, "Look." And I did. My reflection was there, but slightly wrong. The face looked back at me with dead, wet eyes, and its mouth was slowly moving. I leaned closer. I couldn't help it. I had to know what it was saying. But the moment I tried to read its lips, it stopped and smiled. Then from inside the glass, a faint knocking sound. From within. I stumbled back. That's when I noticed something had been placed on the pedestal beneath the mirror. It wasn't there before. I was sure of it. A small blackened box, no larger than a loaf of bread. Made of dark wood soaked in saltwater stains, sealed shut with rope and wax. And sitting next to it, a single old photograph, yellowed with time. I picked it up. In the picture was a group of men, rough-looking, dressed like sailors, or maybe pirates standing on the deck of a ship. One of them had no face. Just a blur, as if someone had violently erased it. But what chilled me most was the background. That mirror. Same carvings, same symbols. But in the photo, it was already cracked. The box had a tag. Handwritten. Faded. Barely legible. "Do not open. Belongs to the captain. Return if taken." When I placed the photo back and stepped away, the mirror changed again. The fog cleared instantly, revealing not a reflection, but a different room entirely. It showed a dark ship cabin lit only by a swinging lantern. A table, a map, and a man in a naval coat hunched over the box. His face was pale, wet, and smiling. Suddenly, the figure turned and looked directly at me. His mouth moved. This time I could read it. "You saw too much." The mirror cracked. A thin spiderweb fracture across the surface, and the lights in the room immediately flickered and died. I heard footsteps. Not mine. Coming from behind. I turned and ran. Later that night, I returned with gloves, duct tape, anything I could use to seal the damn thing off. But the mirror was spotless. No crack. No fog. The box was gone. And so was the photograph. but a new note had been nailed to the exhibit wall, Rule No. 8. If the captain ever looks at you, you belong to the sea. There's something uniquely terrifying about statues. They're meant to be still, lifeless, cold. But sometimes when you turn your back on them, you swear they breathe. I first saw the statue on my 7th night. It stood in the West Wing, a part of the museum that rarely got visitors. Mostly artifacts from the local fishing industry. Rusted hooks, nets with dried kelp tangled in them. Old maritime journals filled with water-stained pages. And at the center of it all, him, the statue, life-sized, roughly carved out of driftwood barnacle crusted and cracked from age. It portrayed a man in a long coat and rain hat, head slightly tilted forward, holding a lantern in one hand, a gaff hook in the other. He looked like he'd just walked out of a storm. There was no plaque, no artist name, no information. But someone had taped a single note to the wall nearby, scratched in black ink. Do not look into his eyes, especially if they move. I stared too long, of course. I always do. From afar, the eyes looked cloudy, uneven glass, maybe stolen from a mannequin. But when I stepped closer, I realized something was off. One eye was blue, deep, clear, piercing. The other was brown, milky, and weathered, almost human in texture. I leaned in, and I swear to God, the pupils contracted. I stumbled back. I turned around to walk away. The light above me flickered, just once. And then I heard it. A creak, like strained wood shifting under its own weight. I spun back toward the statue, and its head had moved, tilted slightly more upright, now looking directly at me. My throat went dry. I whispered almost instinctively, "You're not supposed to move." But of course it didn't answer. It didn't have to. The next morning I found a ripped page lying on the break room floor. It was old, torn from one of the journals in the West Wing. Faint handwriting smudged by salt water. The fisherman watches for the soul who breaks the gaze. If his eyes meet yours, he sees into your storm. I looked once. I still hear the sea in my sleep, and I haven't blinked since. I returned at 1:00 a.m. The pedestal was empty. The ropes around the exhibit were trampled. Wet footprints led away from it, bootprints large, erratic, as if someone had been staggering through the museum dragging something heavy. I checked every room, no signs of him, until I passed the maintenance hallway camera feed, and I saw him, standing, at the end of the hall, his head tilted again. The lantern in his hand was glowing faintly, but there was no light source, and no one else on any other feed. Then the screen glitched, cut to black, and when it came back, he was gone again. That night I had the first dream. I was underwater, tied to an anchor, salt burning my eyes, and the fisherman was above me staring down through the waves. His mouth opened slowly, and thousands of bubbles poured out like a scream. When I woke up, my pillow was soaked with salt water, and in the corner of my mirror, scrawled in mist, "You looked." From that night on, I've obeyed Rule No. 9. Do not look the fisherman in the eyes, not even in your dreams. There's a room in the museum that doesn't exist on the tour maps. No signs, no open doors, and yet every employee knows about it. They just won't talk. I first heard about the basement from an old maintenance log. I was reviewing paperwork during my shift when I found a torn page wedged behind the filing cabinet, dated October 14th, 1996. Scrawled at the top in frantic handwriting, "Basement entrance, sealed. Do not open." It was signed by a man named Carl Jensen. No record of him on staff. No digital logs. When I asked my manager the next day, she went quiet. All she said was, "There's no basement in this building." Then she added much softer, "And if you hear it, don't answer." The museum has a landline in the break room, old corded, yellowed with age. It never rings. No one ever calls. There's no one to call. Until that night. 2:13 a.m. Right after I logged my security check, it rang. Just once. Shrill, piercing, echoing through the silence like a scream. I froze, then picked up the receiver. All I heard was breathing. Not shallow, not panicked, just constant, wet. like lungs filled with seawater. Then a voice, low, croaking, like someone speaking through a flooded throat. You shouldn't have looked at him. I slammed the phone down. I checked the call log. It shouldn't have worked. It's not even a connected line, but somehow the log printed the source. Incoming EXT06, sub-level B maintenance line. Time 2:13 a.m. line, disconnected in 1996. I ran the security feed for that hallway. The screen flickered, then cut to static. When it came back on, the timestamp had reset to 08080808, and for one brief second I saw someone standing at the end of the hallway. A man, soaked, in a maintenance uniform. His face, blank, skin bleached, mouth open, just standing there motionless, looking directly into the camera. 2 nights later, the phone rang again. This time, I let it go to voicemail. But when I played it back, the message was just 5 seconds of silence. And then in a voice barely a whisper, my full name. The sea remembers. I never gave the museum my full legal name, not even on the paperwork. The next day I returned to the old file cabinet, dug deeper. Behind a panel I found a photo water-damaged and folded. A group of museum staff from decades ago. One face was circled in red ink. Written beside it, Carl, last seen near sub-level B. Thought he heard something. Answered the phone. Never came back. Beneath the photo, another slip of paper. Rule 12. If the basement ever calls again, don't answer. But if you already did, never go near water. Now every night at 2:13 a.m. the phone rings. I stopped picking up. But it doesn't matter anymore, because 2 nights ago, my cell phone rang. The caller ID unknown number, origin sub-level B, and the voice whispered something new. Come downstairs. He wants to show you what you've forgotten. They say a blood moon brings out the truth in cursed places. I used to think that was just folklore until the night the moon turned red and everything inside the museum woke up. It started just after midnight. The fog outside was thicker than I'd ever seen, pressing against the windows like a living thing. But what struck me was the color. The moon wasn't white. It was a deep, unnatural red, the kind of red that doesn't glow but burns. It bled through the mist, painting everything in shades of rust and ash. I remember standing in the front lobby, staring out through the glass, and for a second, I saw someone standing in the fog, a silhouette, wearing a raincoat. They lifted a hand and pointed directly at me. Then they vanished. Right on time. The museum's lights snapped off all at once, plunging everything into complete suffocating darkness. The emergency lights didn't come on, not after 6 seconds, not after 10. Nothing. I remembered the rule: close your eyes. Count to 30. Do not open them no matter what you hear. But it was already too late, because I heard the whale skeleton creaking above me, and then a sound I can't describe, like bones shifting in wet ropes. And I opened my eyes. For a fraction of a second, it was gone. The skeleton, gone from its mount. Then I heard footsteps, dripping, getting closer. I sprinted to the break room, slamming the door behind me. The only light came from the mirror above the sink. Except it wasn't reflecting the room anymore. It was showing the ship cabin again, the one from the pirate's mirror. But now it was full of shadows, hunched, twitching things that scraped across the wood floors, dragging chains and whispering my name. And standing in the middle, holding that cursed black box, the captain. He opened it. From the mirror, something crawled out, a smear of darkness, tendrils of seawater, something ancient and angry. I turned away just in time. When I looked back, the glass had cracked. Not spiderweb fractures, but veins, like they were growing. I ran through the museum trying to find a place to hide, but nothing was where it was supposed to be. The swordfish model was impaled into the wall like it had been thrown. The fisherman statue was gone from the west wing, and I swear I heard his lantern swinging behind me. The conch shells in Gallery C were all vibrating, humming in unison, whispering in different voices, calling for me to join them in the deep. The glass cases shattered one by one as I passed them. It was like the museum was breathing, exhaling the horrors it had kept trapped for decades. I ended up back in the front lobby. The landline was ringing. I don't know why I answered it. I just had to. It felt like the last rule, the last step. The voice on the other end wasn't human. The rules were never to protect the museum from you. They were to protect you from what lives inside. Then came the static, and beneath it a sound I'll never forget. Something wet, something heavy dragging itself up a staircase. There is no staircase in the lobby. At least, there wasn't. At exactly 3 a.m., every door in the museum opened at once. Even room 4. I didn't open it. It opened itself. Inside, it wasn't a storage room anymore. It was a dock submerged in dark water with fog rolling across its surface, and moored to the wooden posts was an old fishing boat. On board stood everyone who'd ever disappeared from this place. Pale, dripping, staring at me with hollow eyes. And at the edge of the dock, the captain. He lifted a lantern and spoke without moving his mouth. You looked, you listened, you broke the rules. So now, you belong to us. I shut the door. I barricaded it. I don't know how long I stood there shaking. When the sun finally rose, everything was back to normal. The skeleton was on its mount. The statue was in place. The phone, unplugged. The mirror, clean. But I know what I saw. And I know what's waiting behind that dock. Because since that night I can hear the waves, even when I'm far from the ocean. They never fired me. No one asked about the blood moon. No one checked the footage. In fact, no one remembered anything happened at all. The next night the museum was clean. Too clean. Like someone had scrubbed away the truth with bleach and silence. The glass was fixed. The exhibits were in place. The phone line was disconnected as if it had never worked. Even room 4 was boarded up again. No dock, no fog, no boat. But that's not the part that scares me. What scares me is, they acted like it never existed. The curator didn't remember assigning me that wing. My keycard no longer worked on half the doors, as if I was never meant to go near them in the first place. I asked a senior staff member about the mirror exhibit. She just blinked. We don't have any mirror like that. I tried pulling up the surveillance tapes from the blood moon night. But when I hit play, something strange happened. At first it showed what I remembered, me running the lights, flickering, the exhibits shifting. But then, I wasn't on screen anymore. The footage rewrote itself. Now it just showed static hallways. Still, empty, silent, except for one frame. Just one. At 2:47 a.m. the timestamp glitched, and for a split second a figure stood in the hallway facing the camera. Me. Except, it wasn't quite me. It was smiling. I don't live near the ocean. But now every night I hear waves crashing outside my window. And sometimes, a faint knock at my door. 3 times. I don't open it. Not anymore. Last week my bathroom mirror fogged up while I was brushing my teeth. I didn't breathe on it. When I wiped it clean, one word was written in the condensation: welcome. I moved out the next day. Didn't tell anyone. Didn't leave a note. I just drove. But the museum called me yesterday. Yes, even after I changed numbers. Voicemail. Same voice. You never clocked out. I returned to the museum once more, not to work, just to see if any of it was still real. The break room was the same. Empty. Silent. But there was a new rule posted on the wall. Written in fresh ink. If you're reading this, it's already too late. And beneath it another line written in different handwriting, more chaotic. You'll stay until someone else breaks the rules. I still work here. I still clock in. I still walk the halls. I still check the cameras. But now, there's something different. Someone else has started working the night shift. A new guy. They just hired him last week. Young, confident, curious. He asked me tonight, "Hey, what's with all the weird rules on the wall?" I smiled, told him not to worry. But he already looked into the mirror. He already answered the phone. And tonight is another blood moon. I'm still here, but maybe not for much longer. Because he's about to take my place. If you found this story valuable and interesting, please hit the like button. This really helps us bring you more good and valuable content. Leave a comment below and let us know what you think, what questions you have, or what topics you would like us to cover next. We love hearing from you. Of course, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our next stories. Thank you for taking the time to read my stories.